is so this one is from Lead Nap Gaming, and it's called What's Broken with Exploration. It doesn't exist, would be my first thought, and it's an 11-minute video, so I imagine he's going with what's broken with the design of exploration, maybe. So I'm kind of interested in this one. Let's see what he has to say.
And welcome to this week's episode of Leadnap Gaming. It's all about exploration this week. But what exactly?
I wonder if he's going to touch on the deep probing or whatever it was called.
I had set out initially to kick off a new set of fleet planning videos, since the ones we did previously don't cover ships that exist today that radically changed the landscape. Exploration made a good first start to announce changes to our Odyssey.
I still argue that most ships don't change your experience very much in the game currently, right? We were just talking a little bit about multi-crew ships and so on. It'll change your cockpit view, but you're still just pretty much chasing bounties, going to bunkers, right? For the most part.
Giveaway.
Cargo
Make
hauling,
sure to
maybe?
subscribe now for a chance to win, and we'll talk about that in the show in a few. But setting out to talk about the best exploration fleet drove me to a roadblock. Exploration itself. Now, the obvious is that it really isn't fleshed out gameplay yet. We still only have one system. What is there to explore exactly anyways? Yada, yada, yada. That isn't what we're talking about today, though. Instead, there's a looming larger problem out there, one that's a little harder to tangibly break down, but seems pretty clear at the onset.
Okay.
In short, you shouldn't need an ideal exploration fleet, and yet, the way the game's going, you'll definitely need one.
What?
Confused yet?
Yes.
Let's step away from CIG for a moment and talk just space exploration theory. The ideal exploration ship should obviously have suitable living space and life support facilities. Everything from room and board, but medical facilities too. Next, you'll need exploration equipment itself, long-range scanners, drones probably, for expanding the search without sending people into potentially dangerous situations, and having a smaller craft aboard to
I feel like you have to start with, like, what are you searching for? Because there's all sorts of things in space, right? You could be looking for jump points, or looking for, I guess, maybe resources or anomalies, right? Like, the whole thing is, like, super, super broad. And I think that's kind of why a lot of people get, drawn to exploration, is because I guess it's hard to tell what it's actually going to be.
Dispatch is also pretty ideal. Then you have to support that vessel, repair shops, long endurance engines, you get the idea. So, some other things that are missing from, say, the Carrack, chiefly a fuel refinery to ensure you can go beyond space that's easily explored by just about anyone, and also a source of food generation and potentially equipment fabrication. So by now, aside from those last points, you're thinking what we always have. The Carrack is a solid exploration vessel. The Odyssey should be solid as well, though it lacks some of the scanning ability and lacks at present any of those repair and supporting spaces. It's not yet in game though, and those are easy add-ons. The Endeavor...
Why does every ship have to be able to do everything? I think that is one of the actual good pieces of Star Citizen, is that certain ships do certain things, and even certain ships in the same space of, like, Explorer have different, pluses and minuses to them. And he's kind of implying that these things should just be added to the Carrack or to the Odyssey and stuff.
Then is the Master Tier Explorer, also not in game and not scheduled for release until after the release. We get it, lad. You don't need a fleet because you just grabbed yourself an Odyssey or an Endeavor with the relevant modules. Well, hold on to that notion for a second. If that's the case, then yeah, why buy a Freelancer Dur or the 600i, Drake Corsair, any of the smaller other exploration ships? The core answer already exists in a sense from CIG with the Odyssey as a solid example. The Carrack is a jump point scanner. It has advanced sensors and drones to send off into them. Well,
I think people forget one key feature here. Let's see if he touches on it.
the Odyssey is more of a prospecting ship, if only they could have named it that, and one that industrial explorers use to go find deposits. Never mind the whole it only mines Quantanium thing for now. CIG has given us a variety of exploration ships because they're all intended to do different types of exploration. The Corsair is more of a go explore the planet's surface explorer, and the 600i is an exploration ship for the rich, to go see the things, but not really science. None of these are really the Starship Enterprise, are they? So by now we've established that there's no one best exploration ship, because it turns out you need the ideal.
Holy, that is a jarring amount of movement. I think he's not going to touch on it, so I'm going to touch on it here. There is a 315P. It's a very tiny ship, but it's an explorer. One of the things that I think people actually forget a lot about, because we haven't had one, things like that, is I believe jump point sizes are still a thing. So the Freelancer Der would be the smallest ship, or the largest ship that can go through a small jump point. And their design ideas behind that, who knows if any of this stuff still exists, by the way. Their design ideas by the sizes of the jump points was that a small ship could get to and from areas possibly quicker with less danger by going through the smaller jump points, where the larger jump points would be this really long process that might take you through certain systems like Pyro, right? For example.
Explorer for what it is you plan to explore.
We obviously won't get that with the release of Pyro,
that if you know what
because everybody should be able to go through.
Exploring.
And it may be a large jump point.
Anyways,
I don't remember.
Regardless, this means CIG has broken exploration into silos. You have various exploration ships that do various exploration tasks, with the only outlier being the Endeavor, which is one of the first ships released into the game and won't actually be released until after the game has. Nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, it brings us full circle to needing that exploration fleet after all. Great. So obviously you need a Carrack to go find the jump points in the planets. Next we'll need a Reliant to go to the planet and determine the chemistry and biological makeup to determine if further exploration is needed or even possible. Pin in that. Next we'll need a 600i or a Corsair to explore the planet's surface, and probably an Odyssey too to determine the profitability as far as resource exploitation.
Does he know this game is multiplayer?
Now back to that pin. The Reliant won't bloody fit in a Carrack, and there's only 2 ships in the game today that have science capability, with the other being the Endeavor. CIG could fix this with modules, since the Carrack was in concept supposed to be able to swap the cargo boxes for modular boxes, giving us potentially a fuel refinery and a science lab. Of course, the Carrack has a
Imagine getting mad at that
monster cargo capacity
and talking about the things that he's talking about now.
to store food for a long journey, something the Odyssey doesn't have. But if you can swap one of those modules out for a farm pod, I guess problem solved.
Thanks, Rick.
This, of course, means the Carrack then is back on par with the Endeavor. No problem. But then the Odyssey becomes as useful as the Der. The irony is they're both made by Misk. The fleet then, well, the Odyssey could carry the Reliant, so you just buy the jump points from those Carrack-only owners, I guess. That does help you on the science aspect, but that's pretty niche, and really a bold explorer would just take samples and bring them back home to check out.
Here's the thing. I like that you can still speculate on all this stuff, and I love that he's trying to have some fun with it, and I don't want to take away from that, but it's like... It is hard to watch this stuff sometimes, because you realize that, like, I was doing this stuff in 2014, 2013, you know? And I don't think we should be doing this anymore. Imagine going, because, like, the thing is, he's in full imagine mode. And is that his fault, or is that the dev's fault? He doesn't know anything about exploration, so he has to make it up. and he has to make all these assumptions about all of these ships and what they're going to do. The only thing that I have to knock on him for is he's assuming all this stuff is done solo by one player in multi-crew ships.
Reliant anyways. I mean, unless you
Which
needed
is weird
them to
me,
know if you
but,
could even
yeah.
go on the planet, which you could use drones for, I guess. Yeah. But then again, you can't find jump points with any of these except a Carrack. And if you can, well then...
How do you know that,
nobody's
though?
known a Carrack.
You know?
With its much tinier hangar.
Like,
So,
that's the thing. Is
we
like,
hit
how
the
do we
block
actually
again.
know that
Is
stuff?
exploration siloed, or are you supposed to be able to take the one ship that'll rule them all? We don't have to get stuck on that, though. There's a larger looming problem. Crew. Best estimate for the
Here we
Carrack
go.
and Odyssey is a skeleton crew of 3. Since only dedicated fuel ships can refuel other ships, a Starfarer is probably going to have to join the fleet. Of course, that's a crew of 2, though I suppose you could just park in space and refuel
Starfarer's
the
a
pilot.
crew of 2.
The Dur
What's wrong
might
with
be
this
able to
game?
go the distance, but unless you can refuel the Carrack with it, might as well leave that behind. But you'll certainly want a Carrack or an Odyssey to bring a snub along. Of course, if you just used a Liberator, you could just bring the Reliant, which would act as the snub too, as a bonus. Just drive vehicles right off it. Then again, bringing the Dur along might allow you to refuel those ships in your Liberator. I digress. The problem with an exploration fleet is again in the manpower. You have to have someone flying each vessel you bring out. And for every vessel you bring, you have to support it with even more vessels. This model would be fine in a game where each player operated each ship individually. It forces players to work together to explore, which is a goal in Star Citizen's development. But Star Citizen seems torn between requiring you to work together on a single ship or work multiple ships together.
No, they just
That
haven't.
really is the roadblock. When
We
people
don't know.
imagine space exploration, they imagine Star Trek. We're going to take a ship out into the expanse, looking for loot and glory. Game balance, however, or at least we'll give CIG the benefit of the doubt that it is the reason, prevents that. The Carrack can't do it all, because you would just use a Carrack for everything if it could.
Yes, of course.
No need to build a fleet then, but an exploration fleet has to sail together. And CIG hasn't delivered ships
Does it?
capable of doing so. When I talk about fleet planning for, say, a cargo fleet, the idea is to have versatility in what you can carry and how you carry it. Exploration is different. Explorers and stuff.
Has anyone ever gotten the vibe that like a fleet would be a thing in this game? I'm not sure I ever did. Especially exploration fleets. I think that there's like, you know, your org and you play together, but the way he's describing it to me is like fleet in fleet terms. And like Star Wars or, you know, and like a bunch of ships jumping in at one time. Maybe it's just the word that I'm hung up
Star
on.
Citizen will be the nullsec residents of Eve, people who may not return to civilized space for months. The fleet has to go with them because you can't fly into the void for an IRL month, find a planet, and then fly all the way back home to port to change ships to go back and explore it. The only way that works, the way it would feel we're moving, is that explorers are specialists. No one gets to be Magellan in the 2950s, which is unfortunate because the biggest and most
Magellan had a crew.
expensive ships are sold on the idea that you can be. And on that note, let's talk about winning one of those big expensive ships. It's been a wild year on the channel, and while the 20,000 sub goal is on par with the growth I had going into the start of the year, it isn't fair to you, the viewers, who've been participating. So new goal, new plan. If the channel hits 15,000 subscribers by the start of the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo, I'll raffle off the Odyssey during an IAE livestream.
Whoa,
If we
nice.
hit 15.5,
An
which
Odyssey.
is 1,000 subs from now, I'll throw in something else to viewers of the live stream. Otherwise, everything's pretty much the same as it was. Each month, I'll pull names from the comments, and those names will be the ones drawn from for the grand prize. I've been keeping a running list of all those names all these months, and I'll be publishing that so that you can find out if you're on it. Otherwise, make sure to subscribe and comment for a chance to win. The kind
Okay.
of summary then, the exploration issue, is we imagine our exploration ships to be like Star Trek.
Yeah.
We imagine that we're going to get a bunch of our friends together on this one ship that really goes out and does it all. We're going to go find
Yep.
new planets, explore them, name mountains after ourselves,
Yep.
come back, sell the information about what's there to people that want to go mine it, how
Sure.
to get jump points out to it, so on and so forth, right?
I think he's really coming to, like, back to Earth. Here we go.
And that CIG's not going to do that, is going to make us do that with a fleet, wouldn't be a problem, except the supporting vessels you have to take don't have the legs to get you there with the Carrack or with the Odyssey, right? Or even the Dur in this case, which can get there, but it can't do anything else. That's the core problem we've run into in trying to design this fleet. There's just...
Oh, maybe not. But I think the core problem actually is a complete lack of understanding of where they're going with the design of the game. I think that their intention has always been that it's exploration isn't about the journey. It obviously Star Citizen's not like Elite Dangerous where you go way out into, vastness of space where maybe nobody's ever been. It's more of scanning for anomalies in areas that everyone's been, right? That's the vibe that I got for it. And anomalies could be all of the things that he mentioned, things on planets, jump points, stuff like that, right? And the need for a fleet would be because you're traveling a lot. But I think in reality, the idea behind Star Citizen's like main design is to choose a spot and kind of stay there for a while. They've talked about that a lot. I still think that's their intention. We watched a video previously, like a week or so ago, about single-seater ships and their value because, well, star systems in the lore on the website are a lot larger than the current Stanton system. So, yes, you still will need to travel. There will still be a ton to explore. But the idea of, well, I need this ship now because the current exploration ship that I'm using can only do XYZ thing. First off, we don't know if that's true. Second, you're most likely going to be hanging out in the same area with the same people for a while instead of traveling from jump to jump to jump to jump, right? If you do that, you're going to be doing it within a given system, I believe. So I think he's right. This isn't like Star Wars. This isn't like Star Trek because the Star Citizen universe, while large and larger than any other game probably, is not like each given star system is larger than any play space in other video games. It's not Elite Dangerous. It's not No Man's Sky. It's not like this kind of galaxy simulation, right? And that's the difference, I believe. I truly believe exploration is treasure hunting in, veiled as many different things. The treasure could be an ore vein. The treasure could be a jump point. The treasure could be a salvaged wreck with something cool on it. It's treasure hunting.
Have a fleet that sails together on the exploration, and that's what you would need. So I'm curious to see how exploration really turns out in Star Citizen. It is, after all, one of my favorite game loops and something I look forward to doing. Let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are, and if you're unsure, just feel free to say what you think the best exploration ship is and why.
Yeah,
share this with your friends,
running,
like and subscribe if
whatever
you haven't.
Science maybe.
And I will catch you all next time.
And that's... Sorry, that's really loud. And that's why I think he touched on like the need for fleets and the other need for other ships is like that, is you would couple in exploration with these other things like data running. I mean, even any sort of resource gathering like salvage or mining, and science, whatever the heck science will be. But yeah, I still think it's somewhat healthy to have conversations like this at the same time while being so unhealthy for the project security as well, yeah. Because you set your own expectations for what the game may be, and you're most likely be let down when you find out what the actual design is. He never touched on long distance probing, right? And that was the single biggest discussion around exploration we've ever had. And it was essentially treasure hunting. And the long distance probing would create the map for you, right? So, not necessarily the ship. The capability of the ship was the ability to probe, from what I could tell. But yeah, interesting. It was an imagined talk. It was all out there in the clouds, but I don't think it was as unhealthy of a discussion as I thought it would have ended up being.